Well, so you brought up the political, policy aspect of this, which of course I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, you were an attendee and presenter at the People's Convention, so clearly you see what's going on in our electoral politics as problematic across the board. Do you think that, like, well, let me frame it this way: is there hope in the idea, because I feel like no matter what happens in November, you're not going to have an ally to the climate in office. You're going to have incrementalism or nothing at all. But is there still hope in, if everyone mobilized and had a real Green New Deal in their city? Is there strength in that? Do you see like hope on the local level or even the state level, maybe?
Absolutely, and I think that's what's been happening over the last few years. Is so I think the change is absolutely going to come from the grassroots. I wish we had strong top-down change at the federal level. We didn't even get that under Obama. And there's multiple reasons for that, but one of the main reasons.
Well, he said all of the above, but he didn't tell us that just meant drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed to make some signals that he was worried about climate, but then at the end of his second term, he really pivoted and started really literally bragging about how much oil and natural gas the United States was producing, which, that kind of made my head explode. So, I mean, the one of the main problems, of course, coming back to why I would take the fairly drastic step for a scientist to actually give a speech at any political convention, let alone a kind of a, sort of currently fringe third-party convention called the People's Convention. So why would a scientist do that? Well, I'm freaking out. I've been freaking out for a decade and a half. I don't see policies coming. And I see two parties in our country that are both basically bought by the fossil fuel industry, among other corporate interests. And the problem here is that we don't need to reduce our fossil fuel use. This is what makes this so hard. We need to take it down to zero, because that carbon dioxide from burning that fossil gas and burning that coal and burning that oil, it basically more or less stays in the atmosphere for forever in terms of our lifetimes. Like for as far as we're concerned as human animals walking around on this planet, that stuff stays up there forever. So it starts coming down after a few hundred years, and some of it lingers up there for a few thousand years, and then the last little bit can linger up there for tens of thousands of years. But the time scale of CO2 is pretty long. So it accumulates. And we have to take this down to zero as quickly as we can.
And so, well, let me interject here real quick. What is your timeline on that? Because, I mean, you see, the Green New Deal, like parts of the Green New Deal called for 2025, others called for 2030. And then, like Joe Biden is calling for 2050, which I think scientific consensus says that is too late. Well,
so science doesn't really say what the deadline is for coming off of our fossil fuel addiction. What I think it says is the impacts and the costs and the suffering and the death and the kind of irreversible changes to our Earth system, which are going to plague our descendants for possibly thousands of generations. That stuff is all going to get worse and worse every single day we emit more fossil fuels. That's what the science says. Okay. So what that suggests to me is that we have to get off as fast as possible. Now, as someone who, and the bigger an emergency you see this is, probably, the sooner you would want to set those goals. And if you don't really see this as a big emergency, or if you're like 80 years old and you're like, I'm out of here in a few years anyway, I don't really care, then 2050 sounds fine, because that's basically saying, screw the kids, screw the young people. This is their problem. Let them figure it out, right? That's what 2050 says. When I see 2050, I think that's a policymaker that knows he or she's going to be out of office, and they're not going to have to worry about this, and they're just going to offload this problem on the people coming after them. That's what 2050 feels like to me. So Biden's plan says 2035 for getting a carbon-free electricity. I think we can go faster than that. I mean, good Lord, if we really saw this as our lives being at stake, which is the way I see it currently, especially with the fire burning so close to my house and these crazy temperatures. When you live through heat waves and fires like that, it really changes you, I think. At least it changes me. And I was already freaked out. So if you see this as a genuinely life-threatening thing, if we had 300 million people in the United States who saw this as a genuinely life-threatening thing, or maybe at least like their friends and loved ones and neighbors, and so they were once removed from that, I think we could get carbon-free electricity in 5 years, maybe even sooner. If we right now, there's so many people that still like prioritize, cheap electricity, or they prioritize getting on a plane and flying to Tahiti or flying off to some conference. They prioritize that stuff over really taking action on climate. So if climate bubbles up to the very top thing and people are like, oh crap, this is a life or death thing, who knows how fast we could change our energy systems. And electricity is the easy part, of course. That's why the rest, electricity is about 1/3. Generating electricity accounts for about 1/3 of our overall carbon dioxide emissions and energy use. And then the other 2/3 is all the other stuff, the transportation and whatnot. And so that's why the rest of it is 2050, because the electricity is actually the easy part. So, but to go back to a point I was making just really quick earlier, to bring that down, fossil fuel use down as quickly as we can, it means killing the fossil fuel industry. And they're going to go, I think they're already going into survival mode. And they've been fighting hard for decades to kill climate policy, to control the politics, to control the discourse, and to literally lie to the public, right? They've been saying that the science is, they've been casting doubt and misinformation and confusion into the discourse about the science and making it far harder for us, not only to just do our jobs, but to rate, since the 70s. And they've known. I mean, it's so well documented that these oil majors, the Shells and the Exxons, they had their own internal research, which was right on the money. And they some big boardroom with their cigars, right? Some like little scientist that works for them comes up and says like, this is really bad. Our products are going to kill the planet. And these CEOs and whatnot and publicists and lobbyists reading this and smoking their cigars and saying, we're gonna suppress this. And even more than this, we're going to lie and tell the public everything's fine so we can keep selling our stuff. We're literally just taking it from the earth and then selling it and making these massive profits, right? So that then we can spend a teeny tiny portion of those profits and fund politicians and control the political discourse, right? They're going to keep doing that. They're going to greenwash. They're going to say that they want green energy. They're going to say things. I talked to a couple of executives from Shell, and what they told me, they gave me some glossy pamphlets which tried to make it look like Shell cared, which they don't. And they said, we'll go as fast as our customers let us.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. Oh, they literally said that to me.
Some marketing executive came up with that. Pass the buck. That's
exactly.
Like our marketing strategy, pass the buck. Oh, our customers just love these cars because they have to get places.
Right. And meanwhile, our planet's literally melting and burning all around us. So it's just, that's what drove me to the fairly audacious, unusual step of speaking at the People's Convention, which it was an honor to do, but it is unusual for a scientist to do that. And it's potentially, I would say potentially damaging to my career, but I don't care anymore.
All right. Well, this doesn't leave us. All right.
The planet, my kids, the coral reefs, they're all more important than my career. So, I don't want to lose my career, because then, I think I'll be in a world of pain and I'll be taken less seriously. And I love doing science. I've always loved doing science, but I cannot sit on the sidelines. I literally can't. I would undergo mental anguish, and I couldn't be a whole person if I knew this and I wasn't and this is why I'm on your show, right? And if I knew what I'm seeing, and I wasn't speaking out as clearly and strongly as I possibly could, I think I would have serious, I don't know what they would call it, cognitive dissonance and probably depression and massive anxiety. So I couldn't even do my day job, if I wasn't speaking out, because it would just feel too weird to me to be writing Python code and doing analyses and just kind of knowing what's coming and not doing anything else. I couldn't do that.
So do you think maybe, to kind of take this an optimistic route, do you think maybe in some ways you're just ahead of the curve? I mean, I know that a lot of the science community feels the same way you do. And friends of mine who are scientists, a lot of them echo similar things. They echo such frustration about the powers that be. They echo such frustration about, what these fossil fuel companies are doing and how no one's doing anything about this. They echo concerns for their children. Is it only a matter of time before, putting on the activist hat is not only encouraged, it's mandatory?
Yeah, that's it, Ron. So, before the lockdown happened, I maybe have beers with some friends, and after a few beers, you get climate scientists talking, and I want them to talk like that, to the public openly. The thing is, climate scientists, it's a tricky thing. We did not sign up to be activists. I don't want to be an activist. I don't want to be in politics at all. I don't even want to be, visible in the media. I just want to do science, have some fruit trees, raise my family, have a little bit of fun while I'm here. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to be doing this. I don't think most scientists want to be doing this activist stuff. But the fact of the matter is we're in the hot seat. We're in this situation now where we're the experts on these dramatic, dangerous changes to the Earth system. And if we kind of pretend or give these vibes that if we seem calm, if we speak, if we kind of give the science and talk about the plots, and we don't give any context for what this means to us emotionally, how this makes us feel as parents, how this makes us feel as humans, how this makes us feel as citizens, if we just kind of dryly kind of present the science, and expect the public to. What I'm kind of saying is I need the public to start freaking out, because if they don't, I don't think we're going to get the policies, and I don't think we're going to get the systems changed. And there's this sort of bystander effect where they, your average member of the public, they've got a million things to do. They've got a million things to worry about. Maybe they don't have health care. Maybe they just lost their job, especially in this lockdown. Maybe they're worried about getting evicted. Maybe their kids are going to jail. There's a million things that the average person is worrying about. If the climate scientists seem calm and we're not freaking out, maybe they'll watch us. Maybe they'll see a clip on the news and there's some climate scientists talking about, carbon emissions and carbon budgets and whatnot, and then smiling at the end of the interview and saying, thank you very much. And it seems like they're not too worried, right? What's that member of the public going to think? They're going to think, I got 100 other things to worry about, so I guess I don't have to worry about this yet. It's not that bad. And I wish that wasn't the case, but frankly, the scientists do play a role in bringing that awareness to the public. And I don't know how else to say that. I think I see more of my colleagues starting to speak out. I wish more, especially the ones who are senior and who have good job security and who have maybe tenure. I wish they would just start swearing and, freaking out and saying how it makes them feel, to be seeing this stuff. Maybe they're sad, maybe they're angry, maybe they're depressed, maybe some of them feel despair, maybe some of them feel cautious optimism, but that, we need urgent action. There's this emotional space just for you and for non-scientists. I think it's very complicated for us scientists too. And I think that's that kind of talk and that kind of emotional communication. So there's factual communication, which is the papers, which is the summary reports from the IPCC. It's the plots and the facts. And that's factual information. And there's also emotional information. And I think you know, scientists have to, in this uncomfortable position maybe of kind of our role, if we want to help turn this planet, turn our society, our emitting society around, I think we might have to start taking on both roles.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your